All set.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this special meeting on July 20th at 3:02 p.m. Having a quorum, we will proceed. I call this meeting to order. First up, and really the only thing up, is going to be grant application discussion. Um, so I know I started poking around. Hopefully, Kirsten joins us again. Two directions that I wanted to mention towards. So just from a process side, we are in open board, open meetings. So I would recommend, and I think the direction essentially that we have to go, and this is what I was hoping for Kirsten for, is we would call once we do start accepting applications, we would have to agendize and announce an open meeting for discussions. I think it would be in our best interest, timing wise, to have a criteria ahead of time that we could put together some notes against, each one of us in our own time, to then come together as a board for discussion um, around any kind of rankings or thoughts once we've had a chance to look through it on our own. Does that make sense to everybody? Any thoughts toward that?
That makes sense to me, Michael. And I'm sorry, did Kristen send something out already that
So
you're referencing that it's in process?
she and I had emailed. She was looking into it to see what,
Okay,
if
okay.
any, options were available, and that essentially that's where it came down to is there could be no meeting ahead of time of a subcommittee, for instance, because essentially it would be an open meeting, and so there isn't really a whole lot of purpose in that. Daryl, go ahead.
So at the last meeting, I offered to try to put together kind of a what I thought a grant cycle might look like and work with Kirsten on that. Unfortunately, Kirsten and I weren't able to connect, but I do have kind of an outline that I could share with the board if you'd like to take a look at it.
Excellent. I would love to.
Let me get my screen shared.
Also, I would have thought that today's agenda item would sufficiently cover that purpose,
Purpose of,
having discussions about designing the grant program.
yes, we can do that.
So your comment is really only about the idea of a committee of fewer people putting together suggestions to present to the board.
Correct, of actual rankings once there are submissions to review. uh,
Mhm.
we couldn't, for instance, have a subcommittee to discuss ranking to then present. Correct.
This is
Kirsten,
Daryl. This is Daryl. When you're ready for me to go through this, Michael, I can.
I was just going to say, I spoke with a few people at our office and did some research. And I would be comfortable if board members were to receive the applications ahead of time and do sort of their own review, and then come back in an open meeting to discuss their general rankings or feelings about those documents. From what I've gathered, most of the documents will be able to be requested through Quora by the public. So best practices typically include supplying those documents ahead of a meeting, but you are not required to do so. We would just need to be aware that those documents could be requested through Quora and would have to be turned over.
gotcha. Thank you.
So That would, Kristen, that would include our work individually, if we individually rank things to come and discuss?
Yes, I would think so.
Okay.
Any kind of rubric document. Thank you. All right, Daryl.
Right. So what I've envisioned is maybe a quarterly grant cycle, and I will say up front that this is flexible. It doesn't have to be every quarter if that turns out to be too frequent. But the idea is that in one quarter, applications would be accepted for consideration for funding in the next quarter. If you want to do it less frequently than that, then you could do it 3 times a year, so every 4 months, or twice a year, every 6 months. But I know that this board has talked about having a sense of urgency about wanting to get some funding out to the 911 community. So that's why I suggested a quarterly cycle to start with. So applications submitted in one quarter would be evaluated and selected in the following quarter. And like I said, that's flexible. Following the end of one submission cycle, so if we go by quarters and we start right now, we start this quarter, then September 30th would be the end of the first cycle. That means that after September 30th, we would start reviewing those. And just like you were talking about, my proposal recommends forming a committee of people from the public safety community. They would have to be people who do not have applications in this current cycle in order to avoid any conflict of interest. I do think it would be a good idea for a board member to be on that committee, but no more than one, so that we don't trigger open meeting law requirements. And which board member is on the committee can change from one quarter to another. It doesn't have to always be the same person, just so that there's a different perspective from the board in that committee. And then by the end of the first month, following the end of the quarter, so by the end of October, that committee would be required to provide a report to the enterprise board with its recommendations on which applications to consider for approval, which applications they don't believe should be approved, or maybe they have recommendations that the application needs more work before it can be approved. And one of the nice things about having a regular cycle like this is that if a agency submits a proposal that is not approved, but maybe it's close, it just needs a little more work, it needs a little more documentation, they can work on that then and resubmit the following cycle. So it gives them another opportunity to try to put their best foot forward on their application. Then the discussion about which ones are going to be approved, that will probably need to be done in a public meeting, like Kirsten was saying. I don't believe that the applications themselves should be made public, because the weaknesses in a agency's 911 systems that they're asking for help funding to fix or improve upon might be sensitive information. But as Kirsten said, some of that would maybe subject to core requests anyway, and we would have to deal with those requests as they come in and determine what can be released and what may be withheld. Then once the board decides to award one or more grants to local agencies, commission staff will start working with DORA Purchasing to issue grant contracts for the local agencies. I've already had some conversations with DORA Purchasing as to how to go about this to put in place grant agreements with the agencies that have been awarded grants. And then the other thing that I have on here is that the board should start considering now what accountability it wants from the grant recipients, because those will be built into the grant agreement or grant contract, whether that's periodic progress reports, how frequent do you want those, how much detail do you want, whether you want a final report detailing how the funding was spent, along with an attestation that it was spent on as proposed in the grant agreement. And I know that projects sometimes change as you're in the process of it, so there may need to be a process built into the grant agreement for modifying the grant agreement as the project continues in case they need to change course at all. So we need to think about what that would look like going forward. And one of the things that I would want to ask today is whether we are talking about grants just for local agencies, or if other types of entities like NINA APCO chapter or CCOA or the Training Standards Institute or the Resource Center could also submit applications to fund specific projects.
So to that question, I would say it's really project dependent, and it would be open to any of the qualifying entities that are eligible for the 911 Services Enterprise Assistance. So that's governmental bodies, PSAPs, statewide organizations, or third parties operating for the benefit of governing bodies or PSAPs.
Very good. And I know this proposal is very high level at this point, but I'm hoping this is kind of a good starting place for hammering out the details.
And I appreciate that. I do just want to double check with Kirsten as far as point number 2 there about, and maybe I misunderstood, having that subcommittee, if you will, if we had completely outside with one board member as kind of a chair to direct things. Is that something that we would have to announce, agendize, have an open meeting, or is that something that a subcommittee of completely uninvolved people with one board member, are we able to do that?
I don't see any reason why we are not able to do that. I think that's creative. My only question was, are there people who are volunteers who would be willing to do this?
This is Daryl. Just, based on my long time experience with the 911 community in Colorado, I believe that we wouldn't have too much trouble filling this committee. I think the only hard part would be, making sure that these are people who are willing to evaluate applications without submitting any for that cycle.
Sure.
Amy?
In regards to, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. In regard to one board member being on the committee, is that something the Colorado Resource Center could handle for us? Or is that something because they receive monies that would be kind of a conflict?
Well, this is Daryl. I think because the contract is already in place with the Resource Center, they wouldn't be evaluating any application from them unless they want to apply for some other project, in which case they wouldn't be able to really be on the board or on the committee. But when I say a board member serving on the committee, I mean one of the enterprise board members.
Right. Okay.
But if you're asking if the Resource Center could organize the committee, I don't see why they couldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Then to the schedule, thoughts as far as, do we think that starting, if we keep that quarterly, is that a reasonable amount of time to get it up and running, to have people submit by September 30th this time around? Or do we need to play with those dates, at least for this first time around? Yes, Daryl.
Yeah, and because we're already 20 days into this quarter, if we feel like it's too late to start in this quarter, but we do want to do it quarterly, then the enterprise board could start it next quarter, so we can kind of gear it up and let people know that it will be open for applications beginning October 1st through December 31st, and then in the first of the year, that's when you would make your initial decisions.
Thank you. Jackie?
I don't know if I get to share in your meeting, but I have several that are chomping at the bit for this, hence I'm listening.
Board member thoughts as far as timing. Do we take these next couple months to really solidify that process, reach out for potential volunteers for this subcommittee, to then be able to run with it October 1st? As I'll just put in my 2 cents, as much as I, to Daryl's point earlier, as much as I would like to see these funds get back into helping the 911 community, I want to make sure we're doing it right. I want to make sure we're doing it responsibly and that we're not causing more chaos by rushing in.
I would agree with you there, Michael. And also, I think since we have to kind of review this document also, then we're not meeting again until the beginning of August. It's kind of cutting down even more on our time. So I agree with that. I support that.
This is Matt. I'm okay with it either way. Where I'm wondering time-wise is, could the review committee provide its recommendations within 30 days? Is 30 days enough for the review committee to come up with its recommendations? So in the example on the screen, they would have the month of October.
Mhm.
Do we feel like, and maybe it is, but are we comfortable with at least trying to start with 30 days to get all submissions reviewed and recommendations developed?
Daryl?
To answer Matt's question, I mean, we won't really know until we start doing it.
Mhm.
But if it turns out it takes longer than 30 days, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I think the only danger is if it goes longer than 90 days, then you're overlapping the grant cycles with the committee activity, and that would get really confusing and complicated. So I
Right.
think, hopefully we can keep it shorter than that. I thought 30 days would be long enough, but if it's not, then I don't think that's the end of the world. We'll just take a little longer.
Okay, I'm game to try that.
Thank you.
I think we'll also want to make sure we have a scoring system / rubric ready to go too, correct?
Definitely. That was going to be the next direction I took if we're good.
Okay, got it.
Unless there's any more discussion or thoughts on this part.
I'm just following up with Robert, my supervisor, to make sure that there's no reason why.
Sorry about that.
All right, so then toward that rubric, and Daryl, if you don't mind, I will share my screen. That one. So most of what I was able to find was more kind of RFP and competitive type of scenarios. I did have what I think is a pretty good starting point foundation from my county's grant programs. So you start with a very basic yes, no. So like, for instance, in our financial policies, my mouse will work. We start off with, we have the application process and the proposal requirements. And these are very straight yes, no, it includes these things or it doesn't, as a starting point to meet a minimum requirement. From there, the evaluation committee, and obviously that we would change this to our needs, but it gives an idea. We have a set number of, in this case, there are 9 questions that the evaluation committee is scoring on a set of 1 to 5. So that at the end of that, you have a spreadsheet where you can list however many applications came in under that. So for instance, we have our 3 program priorities, and you can rank out 1 through 5 in each of these 9 to then provide a rough scoring, how much they requested, and then if there is a difference in that, how much you as the ranker, let's say the entity is requesting $100,000. After going through it, based on your criteria and how much money there is, maybe I only recommend 75,000 for this project or the full 100 for that project. And then at the end, we have our how much we have available to us. I think this one I recommend 100,000. This one I recommend 50, and it keeps that running total to help guide the person ranking the subjective objective score, how much your recommendation is, and how much money is left out of that pool. Anybody else have some kind of sample or example rubric or scenario they wanted to talk about? Does that seem like a fair starting point to use that type of process?
Can you put it up there one more time again, Michael? Please? Sorry.
So the committee member would have a sheet like this or an Excel page like this for each response, each submission, that it would then go in, let's say, again, these questions were specific to the county's process. We would change these, but maybe this is a 5 out of 5, this is a 4.
Right. Yeah, I was just looking at the columns, the titles of the columns again, just to make sure. Okay, thank you. That seems like a good starting point to me.
I agree.
So I think two to-dos, 2 action items. How large do we want that subcommittee to be, so that we can start reaching out and seeing how many volunteers we might have available to us, and coming up with a set of questions that you'd like to ask that we can come to the next meeting and compile and play with, so we have these questions that can be ranked on is that a 1 to 5 scale, is that a 1 to 10 scale, to help guide that discussion. Yes, Matt.
Have you considered taking the columns in the example you just showed us and essentially repurposing them with language appropriate to 911, to PSAPs and authorities?
I have not taken a crack at the questions yet. That was going to be my next
Yeah,
undertaking.
I'm thinking about the balance between having enough of the right questions and not overdoing it.
Sure.
Our three grant program areas are fairly broad in name. And I don't know that we need to get too particular.
Yeah.
A certain amount of judgment is, I think, a good thing as opposed to too many detailed questions.
Absolutely agree. In some of the examples I was looking at, it was very specific to a specific grant program, and I think we, at least my understanding is, we were trying to be more open to suggestions, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was certainly one of my concerns. But yeah, I can certainly, if there are no concerns from Kirsten, I can certainly take a first crack at it. I also would like to put it more encompassing into the Excel document, just so there's one document.
Mhm.
Thank you, Amy. We'll talk to you at the next meeting. But then I can get that to Kirsten and Sage, and then hopefully forward it to everybody else as a kind of a starting point that we can come back at our next meeting and discuss.
What do you think, Lynn?
Sorry. No, I think that works for me, and that'll give us a chance to go back and look at the kind of the program and what it's meant for, and kind of be ready to discuss those criteria.
Does anybody feel like we should have a standardized set of questions that works across all grant programs so that we're not having to constantly tweak or rewrite them?
I think to a large degree, I mean, it might, yes, because it seems like to me that would help keep it not only consistent across the first set of applications, but each time we go through the process and make sure we're staying consistent with how we evaluate it. And then maybe there's, a question or two that's a little more catch-all that they can put additional information or submit that.
Excellent. That is all I had to talk about. Certainly, if there's more discussion we can around that application process, I'm happy to have it. If there's none, we can open to any board comments, if there are any, before adjourning for the day.
Thank you to the three of you for putting
Yes,
together
very much.
and looking at what we were just talking about. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daryl.
My pleasure.
All right, then if there's nothing further, our next scheduled regular meeting is Wednesday, August 5th at 3 p.m. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
Matt so moves.
Second.
Thank you, Matt and Lynn. We are adjourned at 3:32. Appreciate everybody's time on this special meeting. Have a great day.
Thanks, all.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everyone.